Right, it's Dann on the Rock Show, and I am joined by Matt Heafy of Trivium. A little bit of a moment for me. How you doing so far, chap?
Very good, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for the good words, too, man.
It's all good, like I say. You're part of the reason I'm into metal. You're one of the sort of first bands I saw live, and wow, you guys have had quite an interesting career in many ways. And in some ways, I'm kind of excited that I get to interview at this point rather than necessarily an earlier point, because follow a lot of the interviews you do, like you did the podcast with Jamie Jaster, stuff like that. And yeah, you guys, for me, are one of the bands to keep an eye on as the music industry has changed, because, well, I think you're shaping up to be headliners of the future.
Awesome, man.
For you, I mean, how's it been so far with the latest album? Because it's a bit of a sound change, a bit of a progression from Vengeance Falls, and I know that you're particularly passionate about this new album. It's had songs on there that have been written for years. Is it going down as well as you would hope with the fans?
Yeah, absolutely. Everywhere we played it in the entire world so far, it's been a massive response. First time we ever played it was at Bloodstock. We were headlining Bloodstock, and it was the first song we opened up with.
Yeah.
And I don't think the record was even out yet. Maybe it was out. I kind of lose all track of time. But ever since that one moment, whether it's the States or in Mexico or in Canada or the UK, which are all the places we've hit so far, a lot of the mainland European countries, the record's been received incredibly well. And that's something we set up early. So every record we do, it will never be the same as the previous.
Yeah. That's very, very true. A lot of bands say it, but you guys have distinctive styles to each album.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because a lot of the bands that say it's the same record every single time. And not only would we find that boring for ourselves, I think that'd be immensely boring for our fans.
Yeah.
So we'd like to give them something that challenges them each time.
It's fantastic. I mean, you mentioned Bloodstock, and you guys had an interesting start. For me, I felt it was actually a tribute to how professional you guys were. Is in the light of technical failures and stuff like that. I mean, I couldn't see your fingers because you were playing, two lead lines, or combining the two as far as I remember, as well as singing. Then Corey was getting electrocuted and whatnot, but you guys took like zero downtime to get sorted and just carried on. And like, to me, that was just that's the music industry, and it was fantastic to watch. And then I've really enjoyed this, how much you guys seem to enjoy yourselves more on stage these days, and I think that's systematic of maybe writing stuff which is a bit more for you guys to enjoy and stuff like that, because I said followed a lot of your press, and I know that at points you haven't been massively happy with some of the stuff. Do you feel that now you don't compromise, you do exactly what you want when you're writing like an album, rather than sort of worrying about whether or not fans are ready for a change, because you've had the quite a few albums under your belt now.
Mm-hmm. I think the big thing with a band making music is you always have to go back to the roots of it and what the roots of it is make the kind of music you want to hear as fans of music, and that's the way I think our most successful records to either us or to our fans have always been the ones we wrote for ourselves. Ascendancy we wrote for ourselves because we had no fans. Ember as well. Crusade, although I love some of the songs, but that's probably what you're alluding to. There are a couple of the songs that I don't feel like are complete, because we were in such a time crunch of write this record while you're on tour, record this record, then go back on a tour.
Yeah.
A couple of songs came out amazing, a couple I just feel aren't done, maybe a couple don't represent who we are. And I was consciously trying to make a record that could appease the people that didn't like our band. Because when Ascendancy came out, although a lot of people remember that it went great, there were a lot of people that didn't like it, and we didn't understand why. We're like, we're metal fans, why don't these metal fans like our stuff?
Yeah.
So I tried to see what else we could do, and then when it came time for Shogun, I don't remember setting out with a goal. I think we just made what came out. In waves, it was let's make what we want to hear, let's embrace simplicity, and then Silence and Snow was the same thing. It's let's make what we want to make.
Exactly,
and I'm not saying with Vengeance we didn't say that, but with Vengeance we made what we were making at that point in time, but we didn't say let's make the same thing, or let's make something that's different from previous. We just made the music like we did with Shogun.
I mean, the thing which I find interesting is you guys almost took the hassle about the new style that was being created on Ascendancy, because people were still getting used to this idea of screaming, singing, and everything like that. As you say, for me, Silence in the Snow is what Crusade was trying to be. Essentially really good metal, without too much focus on screaming, maybe occasional stuff. But, I mean, I like the fact that you're quite honest to people about your vocals, and the fact that you've had points of struggle, and it's taken you a while to actually be comfortable with your singing voice. And I think it really shows on the new album, is you still sound like you, obviously, but it's different. It's almost like you're feeling your voice a bit more and enjoying doing it rather than sort of thinking it's got to sound this way or something like that. Did you find that was the thing? Because I know with Vengeance Falls you were getting close to sort of feeling comfortable with the vocals, and you said a lot in a lot of the Science and the Slow press releases that you're happier than you've ever have been.
Yeah, I feel like, and this sounds crazy, and this will sound crazy for anyone that hears it, I feel like I haven't really been singing right or singing the way that I felt comfortable maybe the last 4 or 5 months. It was a show in the middle of the last North American tour. I said to my bandmates, "Hey guys, I think I know how to sing now."
Yeah.
I've always been singing, but I feel like I really figured out how to do it. And what that is, the same thing you were mentioning earlier about the comfort and the ease and the enjoyment of the playing, is that the material, not exactly the material, it's more so the preparation of the instrumentalists in the band.
Yeah.
When I'm off tour, when I'm home, I make sure it's still 7 days a week, 1 to 3 hours a day of vocal
I was going to say,
training.
you've got a rigorous practice schedule.
Yeah, and then I make sure it's at least 30 minutes of guitar, or 30 to 60 minutes of guitar. Guitar, I put so much time into it already.
Yeah.
Vocals, I need to put in more. And guitar, you can never put in enough, but I know what I need to work on, so it's vocals. And just living a very regimented, very practiced routine for what we do. I blew my voice out, I guess that was maybe 2 years ago. It was on the Vengeance Falls cycle. Yeah, at a festival called Rock on the Range. We had to cancel like 2 weeks of a tour. I had to fly home. I thought my career was done. And what I found out after a long time of retraining with a guy named Ron Anderson, who Matt from Avenged Sevenfold actually got me in touch with.
Yep.
So Matt was the first person to text me when he heard I blew my voice out. And what we discovered was the screaming style I've been doing since I was 13 years old was completely destroying my voice.
Yeah.
And so it was about, I think Bloodstock was the first day that I brought screaming back with a new technique that sounds the same. And it was quieter then, and it's slowly been building. And right now I think it's to a place where the volume is the same as Corey's scream, and I'll just keep working at it.
Because we've done interviews with Corey before, and he's got an interesting, shall we say, perspective on screaming, where he says he just makes noise down a microphone.
Yeah.
But it's probably because he doesn't have the dual vocalist sort of curse almost that.
Yeah, well, some people are able to figure out the mechanics very quickly. Like Austin from As Lions, he was able to figure out the mechanics of transition to the super high singing.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, I thought it was never going to be possible, and I really didn't start being able to do that until. I mean, yeah, we recorded Silence in the Snow, but I don't feel like I was comfortable doing that until maybe 6 months in touring on the record. And
you said on the podcast that you've come to terms recently with the fact that you're never going to have necessarily a gruff-sounding singing voice.
Yeah, I mean, I always want it, and even when you mention it, I still wish I could do the raspy thing, and I really do try. You know, people are like, why don't you do this? I said, well, I do try. Because there's so many, it's very easy to do it with incorrect technique, but that's something I don't want to do, because I've already screwed myself multiple times. But ever since Ember to Inferno and Ascendancy, I never really did a gritty style of singing. It was always screaming and singing. Shogun, I did do more of a gritty thing, but I remember it just did not sustain live. No. There's a proper way to do it. Matt from Avenged does it correctly. Chris Cornell does it correctly. There are guys that have it down. There's some guys who are born with an amazing grit. Yeah. Like
Corey Taylor.
Yeah, Corey Taylor, Chuck Reagan from Hot Water Music. Yeah. I mean, that dude's got one of the greatest grits ever. And so some people are born with it. Some people train it, like Matt trained it. I've tried, and I guess it's good to embrace what you have. Yeah. There's so many great gritty vocalists out there. Maybe I'll be the guy that's singing really clean, still with power, though.
I think you, for me, you're one of those ones which, anybody that listened to you in Ascendancy days and heard all the criticisms that people had of that style of screaming and singing at the time, I think you're one of the people that has very much proved that you can build a career out of being a dual vocalist. Mm-hmm. And as you say, you've had your points of sort of being more fan of the singing and more screaming, and I to be honest, I love not even checking your set list before I go into a gig, because to me it's just I don't know what the next song's going to be, and I find that quite exciting.
Yeah, we change ours every night too. In the UK, we're changing every night.
So people
know a lot of people come to every show too.
Yeah. It's nice that you actually sort of recognise that and do something about it, because a lot of bands will just have the set list, but you guys have got such a varied back catalogue. Mm-hmm. Do you find certain countries prefer certain albums? Do you sort of play them?
Absolutely. It'll be city to city, country to country, that certain songs will react bigger than others. Yeah. It's random. Like, it could be city to city in England for different song reactions. Pull Harder used to be your biggest song on the set. Now, without a doubt, it's In Waves across the board for every single country. Yeah. It's the biggest one.
I think it's just because it's so recognisable. Is everybody from that opening scream just knows what's going to come. Do you have any personal sort of favourites, whether you play them a lot live, or anything that when like listen back or from the beginning of writing that you've just really enjoyed? Like any songs that stand out?
Really happy with Dead and Gone right now, and I hope I'm not jinxing myself, because when we first did the song on the record, I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to sing this live, because it's at the absolute highest note that I ever used to think I'd be able to hit. And nowadays it's so easy. Yeah, it's great. It's just great to be able to have something that I thought I wouldn't be able to do that's quite easy now.
Just for those who don't sort of know, because I'm all about sort of getting the fans to understand some of the stuff that guys like yourselves go through. When you say you blew out your voice, what did that actually sort of mean for you? Like, could you not talk, or?
Yeah, you physically cannot make a sound. Like, I was not able to sing. We were playing a festival in front of like 60,000 people in America, and I knew by the first note I made that I'd be able to push through this set, but once that was done, you're done. Because the thing that sucks is, like, if you're a guitar player and you're sick, you can get through it. You're a drummer and you're sick, you can get through it. But if you're a singer and your voice will physically not make the notes, it's not going to happen. There's no way to cheat it. Unless you're one of the many, many bands that play the tracks, which that bums me out. That there's so many bands that do really freaking well. Some in this country that do really freaking well. That it's all tracks. It's like, if you're going to be in a band and your one job is to sing, know how to sing.
Yeah. We can probably work out who you're talking about without mentioning any names.
Not specifics. I mean, there's a lot, and there's a lot of pop bands that do it. There's a lot of country bands that do it. A lot of rap bands that do it. And there's some really amazing bands that make incredible music that I'm fans of, and I love what they do, and it's just, come on. You got to be able to at least play your shit.
Yeah, well, you said about the vocals. I mean, for some reason, you also come under much harder scrutiny as a vocalist.
Yeah.
Like, almost the entirety of this scene is unforgiving if you hit a bum note. Because one of my favourite sort of things I heard last year was passion over perfection. Because quite a few vocalists were coming out saying, I'd rather run round on stage and give a good performance as well as singing, and at points I won't necessarily be able to hit a note, because if I'm running from one end of the stage to the other, I'm going to be slightly out of breath.
Yeah, and imperfections are very important, and that's something that I think is also lost in the art of making CDs now. Everything is too polished, too corrected, too overanalyzed, too locked up.
Yeah.
Too tuned. I mean, we've done records where I tell the producer, do not tune my voice. I like the way it sounds. I'm on pitch. Any slight variations make me sound like a human being.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't do it. Then they do it.
Yeah,
Which, that bums me out. But
well, also, it kind of sets people up to not know what they're getting live. If you're sort of tuning yourself to a certain pitch, and I know there's sort of some big vocalists out there that proudly tune their vocals, and they like the production of it, but I think it's letting themselves down a little bit.
It's made a weird thing for people. Like, I don't like the shows, but I mean, I like one of the voice competitions. I like the show The Voice. I think the singers on that are better than a lot of the other shows. But on the other shows, it's weird when I'll hear some of these young kids sing. They're singing and they're mimicking autotune because they're so used to hearing it, they don't know anything of it. They think the human voice sounds like that.
Yeah.
And they sound like androids when they sing. And it's the same thing with instrumentalists as well. People that have become so used to these doctored things that, whether it's a producer or a band guy or an engineer, felt like that's the way things should be over-perfected. They've sucked the human element out of it.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, you go back and you listen to what a lot of people call, like, the greats and stuff like that. It was when I sat down and listened to Slayer's first album, and you realise that the clarity of, like, the notes and how fast they're playing isn't there compared to more recently, but nobody cares about that on the old albums.
The passion's more important, because I've always wanted to be like a virtuoso singer or guitar player, but it seems like people don't really care as much. That people like something that's more interesting or with character than a virtuoso. I mean, if you think of Lemmy's voice, it's a very strange, amazing voice that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no,
but
you're not
people
wrong.
absolutely love it, and it's instantly recognizable. Same thing with Ozzy. Ozzy's voice is, he's not like an opera singer, he's not like a pop virtuoso singer, but he has such an iconic, amazing voice that you want to listen to.
Yeah.
Brian Johnson has one of the most unique voices. I think people are more into, like you said, paraphrasing, but like the character over of precision.
Yeah. See, what I find quite interesting with the way things are in a lot of, shall we say, legend changes at the moment. So you've got these legacy bands that have been around for, years and years and years, and they're still sort of owning the headline set. And what I try and get people to do, just so that, we're not sort of left that when, unfortunately, none of them can play anymore, like, nobody's ready to step up. I'm telling people, like, go out there, like, listen to people. And I think that Trivium is one of those ones which is best placed to be able to take over from some of the bigger acts, because what a lot of people forget is you take one of our favourite examples on the show is Iron Maiden. Is nobody remembers the part of Iron Maiden where they went so downhill they were paying like 2,000 cap venues and barely filling them. And look at them these days. Yeah. It's like everybody just remembers what they are now. And it's got that distinctive voice, and it's the one thing which I think can very much be said about your voice particularly, is there's nobody else that sounds particularly like you.
Thank you very much.
All your sort of criticisms that you've had over time, you know when you're listening to a Trivium song.
That's awesome. That's what we've always hoped to have.
And I think that's going to lead you to be one of the people that steps up, because you've got all these not close-minded fans, but fans that are so used to being able to see their headliners that they've seen for the last 30 years, that you're one of the bands that they can get into. So, you know, if Screamy's more their thing, you guys have got that throughout your music taste. But you've also got stuff which the more like sort of, you know, your sweaty denim wearing sort of hairy metalers will be into as well. And so, and when you look at their sort of, let's take Metallica for example, it's not like you can say that they've got one sound across every album.
And they have so many signature sounds, and signature sounds within records too. If you look at their signature sound of like Fade to Black, Sanitarium, Unforgiven, it's something totally different than their other things.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that makes me giggle is nobody wants to point the finger anymore and go like Load and Reload was...
Those are amazing.
But they're interesting, that's the thing, is they completely broke past the thing, but nobody wants to sort of say like anything bad about them. I think between the two albums they make one really decent album. Yeah. But I like the fact there's two of them, because it shows a band that was actually trying to break past its first four albums. And
yeah, we talk about it all the time. Everyone in our band loves Reload and Load. We love those records. I think they're amazing. They're like really great rock records.
Yeah, and those who criticise them, you'll still see the same people singing along to Fuel, because they seem to forget that Fuel is part of that
And
era.
those records sold, what, probably 10 million records a piece?
Yeah.
That's the thing. The bigger the band, the better the band is doing, the more noise you hear. That's the 5% loudest negative opposition of something. People that probably wouldn't have even liked it in the first place.
I mean, I'm all up for like sort of, because I will be completely honest, when Ascendancy first came out, it took me a couple of months to actually get into it, because it was so different. I mean, I was into sort of your In Flames Colony and all that sort of stuff, which had a similar-ish sound, but there was no dual vocals, and the first time I listened to Ascendancy, I was a little bit, you know, not sure about this. I'll put it to one side, I'll get back, I've paid money for it, so I'm going to blatantly listen to it again. It was one of those ones where I listened to it again, I was like, how did I not like this the first time?
I love that. I love challenging people, where people listen to something for a second, like, I don't get this, or I don't like this. I remember when we released In Waves, people were pissed. They're like, I don't get this sucks, why did you do this? And then now it's the biggest song and biggest record.
Exactly. I mean, I've heard like quite a few people, because we've got a fairly vibrant local scene where we are, and you guys are one of the discussed bands, shall we say.
That's good. I love that. I love being the band that people speak about it in such a love and such a hate. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That means that there's emotion behind the things versus just ambivalence. Oh, that band's alright.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that band's cool. That's I don't want that.
Well, you get like the sort of people drawing their own conclusions to things. Like the amount of times I've heard that In Waves is the spiritual follow-up to Ascendancy, and then Silence in the Slow is the spiritual follow-up to Crusade, and then you're going to have an immensely sort of technical album to follow up from Shogun. I don't know. But it's something that people seem to like have this focus in on, where they need that sort of understandability. Whereas for me, I'm just excited whenever you guys say that you're writing again, because I know that I'm not going to get sort of Vengeance Falls again.
Yeah, I've been listening to demos that some of us have been passing around. It's unlike anything that we've ever done, and truly unlike any other band I've heard. Like, I was trying to compare, like, Paolo showed me some riffs he'd come up with the other day, and I was like, I told him I couldn't even think of a band to say that this sounds like.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you mention the links, like, I almost even see a link between more so Crusade and Vengeance Falls, Ascendancy and Waves, and then Shogun Silence. Even though Silence isn't tech at all, by the means of what Shogun is doing, I kind of see those links between those, I guess. But although they're all so different from each other.
Well, this is the thing, is that's why people have to use the whole spiritual follow-up, because, you know, they're looking for, I think, just a way to almost reason skipping the albums they didn't like and then getting back into you guys. What I always say to people is I'm not the biggest fan of Crusade, and I don't even mind saying that to you, but that's because half the album is, for me, absolutely killer. I think it's brilliant. Like, Tread the Floods is still one of my favourite songs.
The thrash songs are fantastic. And, you know, I think World is a strange song. Paolo wrote The Rising, and he's told me that he hates that song, so it's like...
But that's the thing, is and it's... You are allowed to have these likes and dislikes even within an album. What's weird for me is... you almost have like a... do you know Stan Bush from the original cartoon Transformers movie? That's what Tread the Floods reminds me of. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, I think of Transformers, and it's one of those strange things that you put your own stamp on the
absolutely.
music.
I do that with all my favorite bands. And Tread, we've been playing, and we're not playing it tonight, but we've been playing it a lot. Tread the Floods goes over huge live. And that's what's funny. We'll meet fans after the show, and they'll always start it with, I know people don't like this record, but I love The Crusade. And then sometimes Paolo or me will point out, and we say, man, that record did very well. And it's like the people that don't like it, we're just a very loud minority, which is fine. Like, we encourage people to dislike and like things and discuss and debate. That's good. That's the way we should be able to have conversations about things.
I think with Crusade, you guys were almost victims of press making more noise than the fan base.
Absolutely.
Because it was during a time where press just attacked the bands rather than support them. So when you did something different...
They loved us on Ascendancy, hated us on the Crusade, and then just washed their hands of us in the next one.
Which I think people are very foolish to do, because you have very few bands that, like I say, you can have a set list that you don't know what's coming next, and that you guys are so proficient that you can change it from night to night, because you know so many bands like practice set list and they can't remember the other stuff.
And there's so many bands that we'll tour with too that don't practice. They don't practice as a band. They don't warm up for shows. And I remember I've even offered some like guitar players like lessons and stuff that like the band, and they just don't show up.
That's crazy.
All right, man.
It kind of leads us around, because I hope we've got a theme a little bit with our interviews at the moment, because it's something that's quite important to us on the show. Is if you had any bits of advice to give to sort of a fledgling band, quite low down, what would you say from the position that you're at is something really important to remember? Like, what would you wish you had been told when you were right at the beginning, almost Ember days? If you had a chance to pick the brain of somebody much bigger, what would you pass down these days as a bit of advice?
The fact that anything is possible, as far as if you want to be a singer, they can... I remember I've always said, I was like, I'll never be a singer who can sing notes like Bruce Dickinson or like Ronnie James Dio or Rob Halford. I will never be able to do that. And I kept telling myself I'd never be able to do that. My vocal range is low and it can't go anywhere. Well, thanks to my singing teacher and believing it, I mean, every night we come out to Run to the Hills, and I'm able to hit all the notes in that song, except for the super, super highs that he does. But I'm able to sing along to the chorus. I never thought I'd be able to do that in my entire life.
Yeah.
I was always like, I'm a low singer. I need to be singing like Johnny Cash kind of stuff. But you can get that, but it takes work. It's an insane amount of work, and I think a lot of bands aren't ready for that. I think... And we've seen it firsthand in our band, we've seen it in bands directly around us, that people, they feel once they're signed, once they've got a record out, and people like them, they don't need to practice anymore, and that they don't need to put work into it. So if you're just starting off, you need to practice every single day. You need to be the absolute best guitar player, singer, drummer, whatever the hell you are, the absolute best possible of that instrument, proficient, and make the best kind of music you can. The way you get good at making songs is writing songs, practicing writing songs. And be open-minded. Don't be in a band that's a monarchy. Our band is very democratically run. It's always majority rules. And I think the bands that are monarchies are the ones that it's the same sound all the time, and it becomes really stale, and no one can tell them. Like, I love the fact that you're comfortable to tell me, I didn't love this record. That's cool. I'm not gonna I'm sure there's
off the bus or something.
I'm sure there are so many band guys that would do that though, which is stupid to me, because we're making something for people to put their idea of what they feel it is. Like, to look at a piece of art and say, this is how this makes me feel, this is what this makes me feel. And that's what music is. It's supposed to allow people to create their own definitions of what they feel, what they see, what they hear.
I think it's great, because like I say, pride's an issue in metal, I think.
Absolutely. And in bands, all band guys of all genres, even metal bands, metalcore bands, hardcore bands, punk bands, pop punk bands, emo bands, death metal bands. I've seen ego at all levels of it. And the ones that haven't had any ego are the bands that have really found themselves, have always done what they wanted to do. Metallica are some of the greatest, most humble people I've ever met in my entire life. Same with Iron Maiden. Everybody in that band is unbelievably down to earth. Yeah. It's just like having a conversation with people that aren't in a band, that haven't done what they've done, which is, that's the way it should be. We're not superheroes, we're just guys in bands. Yeah. And that's what all band guys need to remember.
That's fantastic. In some ways, like, some people don't want to remove the rock star element, but I just love the fact that you can sit here, let us know that, and then still go out there and rep it, and give people a good show. It's to me, it's what music is a bit more about. You've got to break down some of the misconceptions, be a little bit more truthful, and then love the band for what it is then, once you have a better idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to probably have to cut it short there because I could talk your ear off probably for the rest of the night.
Awesome. It was a fantastic interview, man. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak
Awesome.
with you.
Thank
Cheers.
you so much.